What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to a new video, and today I'm going to be doing a rod tier list on fish. So as you can see right here, I have all the fishy rods ready to go, and I believe in total we have 55 or 56. And come to think about it, I didn't realize how many fishy rods we actually had in the game. Instead of using pictures of the fishy rod, I decided to use a name instead, only because I thought it looked better so you guys can actually see it without like zooming in. And while ranking each fishy rod, there's going to be multiple things I'm going to be looking at, like for example the price, the stats, the usefulness, the looks, all that stuff. And the first one on the list is the Arctic rod, and the Arctic rod I'm gonna put it at an A tier. You guys need to remember the Arctic rod only costs $25,000, so if you really wanted to as a new player, you could speedrun to it and buy it. And for the weight, it has a max weight of 80,000 kilograms, a resilience of 15%, and a control of 0.18. That alone right there can help you catch nearly every single fish in the game. A lure speed of 45%, which is already good enough, and a luck of 65%. So if you want on the Arctic rod, you could put storming on it and it'll be a really good fishy rod for a long time. And for the next fishy rod, we have the Astro rod, and I'm going to be putting the Astro rod at a C tier. If you guys remember, in order to unlock the Astro rod, you had to put in a code that only lasted 24 hours. And if you got that code after the 24 hours, it was gone forever. And in general, the Astro rod is really not that good. Even though it is free, I'd rather still use a steady rod, and it only costs $7,000. And next we have the Aurora rod, and I'm going to put this one at an A tier. At the beginning of the game, the Aurora rod was a really good fishy rod. The only issue with this fishy rod at the beginning of the game, not many people had enough money to buy the totem. So I think in general, it was a really good fishy rod. And for the next fishy rod, we have the Buddy Bond rod, and I'm going to put this one at a D tier. And to get this fishy rod, you had to invite a friend to fish. And this was actually pretty hard because most people at the time have already been trying fish for a while. And if you look at the stats, they're pretty terrible. And even if you invite your friends to play to increase the stats, they're still not that good. And the deal breaker for me was the weight, because at a max weight, it's only at 300 kilograms. So you really can't catch like that many mythical fishes with it, especially the really big ones. And at that point, you should just use a steady rod anyways. And the next fishy rod, we have the Carbon rod, and I'm going to be putting the Carbon rod at a B tier. So the job of the Carbon rod is to help you make enough money to buy the steady rod. And for the next fishy rod we have is going to be the Candy Cane rod, and I'm going to be putting the Candy Cane rod at a D tier. The Candy Cane rod actually has a negative resilience, and this fishy rod has a max weight of 150 kilograms, so you're not going to be catching big mythical fishes anyways. The next fishy rod on the list is going to be the Celestial rod, and this fishy rod I'm going to be putting it at a C tier. And the main reason I'm going to be ranking it so low is because for one thing, so in order to unlock the Celestial rod, you have to have a lot of requirements. You have to be level 500, you have to have $100,000, and after you get those two things, you're going to have to get crafting materials. You will need 3 moonstone, 3 moonwood, and 1 ancient thread. I'm telling you right now, to get moonstone is going to be one of the most rarest things you could get in the game. Like for me, I sat there for like 3 days spawning meteors, and I have never come across a moonstone. So this would mean you need to trade it and spend a lot of money, maybe in the millions. And for a fishy rod at level 500, you might as well use a no life rod, and the stats are not that good anyways. So I think C tier is a good one. And the next fishy rod on the list is the Crystallized rod, and I'm gonna put this one also in C tier. Now this fishy rod is actually pretty decent. The only issue is the Arctic rod exists. The Arctic rod is cheaper and better, and you also don't need another person to unlock it. For this fishy rod, you have to do a puzzle with a friend. So in general, the Arctic rod is better, so you might as well go for that one. And for the next fishy rod on the list, we have the Destiny rod, and I'm gonna be honest, the Destiny rod is one of my favorite fishy rods in the game. Now if I'm being biased, I would put it at a B tier, but I think in terms of the game and usefulness, I'm gonna be putting it at a D tier. Now the Destiny rod is not the worst fishy rod. You could use it for one thing. You could use it to complete your bestiary much quicker. Even though it is the luckiest fishy rod in the game at 250%, the lure speed, control, and resilience is way too low. And remember, to unlock it, you need a 70% total bestiary completed, and it also costs $190,000. So I feel like you should skip this fishy rod, but if you have the money and you want to have it, go ahead. For the next fishy rod, we have the Fast rod. I'm going to put this one at a B tier. The Fast rod actually has a really good use. If you want to, you could use it to farm the treasure maps, and if you farm the treasure maps, you could get the sunken rod really fast. And it is pretty cheap too. I believe it costs $4,500 in moose wood, so pretty much anybody could buy it and use it to farm treasure maps. And for the next rod, we have the Fisher's rod, and I'm going to be putting this one at a D tier. Many people in the staff have said this game will not be pay to win, so it's safe to say that this fishy rod is going to be terrible. And even though it costs 100 Robux, you're better off saving your money anyways. And for the next fishy rod, we have the Flimsy rod, and this one I'm going to put at a D tier. I mean, it is the beginner rod for the game, and it is pretty terrible, and I'm pretty sure it has a max weight of 10 kilograms, so yeah, that is very very low. So in general, it is terrible and you want to get away from it as soon as possible. And next we have the fortune rod of this one I'm going to put at a D tier. It is called the fortune rod and it does have a very high luck of 110%, but it does have a negative 35% lure speed and negative 15% resilience. And many people want a fishing rod with high luck so they could catch mythical fishes. And I'm telling you right now that negative 50% resilience is going to be the reason you fail a lot of fishes. So in general, it is a terrible fishing rod. And for the next fishing rod, we have the Fishmas rod. And this one, I'm going to put it at a D tier. If you guys remember, to get this fishing rod, you had to pay 800 Robux. And I mean, just like that, it's already a terrible fishing rod to me. Now, the stats on this fishing rod is not that bad, but there's a bunch of fishing rods that are way better in the game for free. And isn't 800 Robux like 10 bucks? Yeah, just save your money. Stay away. And I'm pretty sure it's too late to buy it anyways. And for the next fishing rod we have on the list is going to be the Frost Warden rod. And this fishing rod, I'm going to put it at a D tier. And just like the previous fishing rod, this one costs 800 Robux as well. And again, the stats are really not that bad. However, 800 Robux is a lot of money. I'm just saying for future reference, do not waste your parents' money. Do not waste your own money. Stay away from fishing rods you have to buy with Robux. Because even though the stats are not that bad, there's a bunch of free fishing rods that are way better. The funny thing I found on the wiki, it says right here, we don't recommend enchanting this rod with a enchant relic, as this would be a waste. Yeah, what a good way to summarize that fishing rod, a waste. And next up, we have the fungal rod. And this one, I'm gonna put at a D tier. There was actually a 70% chance the fungal rod will give you the luck boost. You guys know the luck boost you get from Merlin. This fishing rod used to give it to you for free. But as the game has progress, it's pretty cheap to buy that luck boost from Merlin. And I'm pretty sure after a lot of people started using it, they nerfed it. So yeah. And the next fishing rod on the list is gonna be the haunted rod. And this one, I'm gonna be putting it at a B tier. Now, when this fishing rod first came out, every single new player in the game was using it. And the main reason they use this fishing rod is because it was free and it was way better than most beginner rods during that time. And I'm pretty sure this fishing rod had 2 mutations. It had Sinister and Ghastly. So it was a really good fishing rod and it was giving you a lot of money. And yeah, you can see right there, this fishing rod was really good at the start. And for the next one, we have the Heavens rod. And this one I'm gonna put at a S tier. And there's really not that much to say. It's a really good fishing rod, one of the best in the game. And for the next fishing rod on the list, we have the Ice Warpers rod. And for this fishing rod, I think I'm gonna put it at a B tier. And the main reason I can't put it at an A tier is because the Arctic rod is still better. Not only is it cheaper, it is much easier to get this fishing rod. So Arctic rod is still superior. Next up on the list, we have the Krampus rod. And I think this one, I'm gonna put it at a B tier as well. In order to unlock this fishing rod, you need crafting materials on level 150. And those crafting materials are not really that difficult to get. And if you put storming on it, it would be a good mid-level rod. And for the next fishing rod, we have the long rod on this one. I'm gonna put it at a D tier. And to be honest, this fishing rod, you could just ignore it unless they update it in the future for a specific reason. And for the next rod on the list is gonna be the lucky rod. And this one, I'm gonna put it at a D tier. I'm not really a fan of fishing rods with a negative resilience because if you were to enchant it, you have to waste resilient on it. And this fishing rod has a negative 30% lure speed, so you can't even use hasty on it because you have such a low resilience, you're gonna fail a lot of fishes. So D tier is pretty good for me. And next we have the magma rod, and this one I'm gonna put it at a D tier as well. Yeah, I know I'm putting a lot of fishing rods at D tier, but I'm telling you, a lot of these fishing rods are not useful. The magma rod only has one use. You could use it to fish in the Rose Lake volcano, and if you have the reinforced rod, you could just use that one instead. And on top of that, the magma rod stats are pretty terrible compared to the reinforced rod. So if you need to complete the best sherry, just go get the reinforced rod instead. And for the next fishing rod on the list, we have the magnet rod, and this one I'm gonna put it at an A tier. This fishing rod at the beginning stage of the game is really good. It helps you catch quality bait crates, which you could use it for bait or sell it for money. This fishing rod, I used it myself at the start of the game a lot. And for the next fishing rod on the list, we have the Metis rod, and this one I'm gonna put it at a D tier. In general, it's not a good fishing rod and not one you should go for. It has a minus 20% resilience and a 10% luck. So in order to make this fishing rod really efficient, you have to use storming and use deep coral on it. If you use deep coral on it, it'll increase it by 50% on the resilience, so it would make it 30%. But I feel like at that point, if you have deep coral, you have better fishing rods. So this fishing rod is really something you shouldn't go for at all. And for the next fishing rod on the list is the King's rod, and I think to give it the respect it deserves, we're gonna put it at a B tier. I just feel like the King's rod held it down in fish for a very long time, so putting it like a C tier or a D tier is pretty disrespectful. So I think B tier is actually pretty good for it, and to this day it does have some pretty good uses. You could use this fishing rod to catch a Megalodon if you really wanted to, so I think B tier is fair for it. And up next we have the Lost rod, and this one I'm gonna put it at a C tier. In order to get this fishing rod, you have to be level 450 and have $50,000. Now it is cheap, but that level is pretty high, and I just think this fishing rod is so much inferior to the Trident trotted rod. Now looking at the passive with this fishy rod, after 6 perfect catches in a row, it triggers a special mode that boosts the rod's luck by 150% for the next 3 casts. So that will boost it all the way up to 175%. Now even though it might cost you money, using the trotted rod is going to be way better, because with the trotted rod you have a passive mutation of Atlantean to make you more money, and you have the stabbing effect to help you catch fish even faster. And since the trotted rod has a high luck already, you could use hasty on it to get instant catch, and that's pretty much why I put it at a C tier. And the next fishing rod on the list is going to be the mythical rod, and this one I'm going to put it at an A tier. I still think to this day the mythical rod is an amazing fishing rod. I always recommend new players to buy because you can make a lot of money with it. And for the next fishing rod we have the nocturnal rod, and this one I'm going to put it at a B tier. When I first started playing fish and I realized the nocturnal rod existed, I started to use this fishing rod over the steady and haunted rod. If you look at the stats, a lure speed of -10% and luck of 70%, a control of 0 and a resilience of 0% with a max weight of 2,000 kilograms. If you want to, you could put resilient on it and use bait that gives you a higher lure speed. But you know what, now that I think about it, I'll probably put it at a C tier now. The next fishing rod on the list is going to be Frostfire rod, and this one I'm going to put it at a D tier. This fishing rod is another fishing rod you have to buy with Robux, and to buy this fishing rod you need 800 Robux, and I think the stats in general are pretty bad, especially this fishing rod. It has no mutation, so it does not give you extra money when you catch a fish. And up next we have the no life rod, and this one I'm going to put it at an S tier. I mean, the no life rod is still a good fishing rod to this day, and I'm pretty sure with this fishing rod I caught the most fish with, so yeah, I really like this fishing rod. But now that I have the heavens rod, I'm going to use this one way more. And for the next fishing rod we have the North Star rod, and this one I'm going to put it at a D tier. Now even though this fishing rod is free, it is worse than the steady rod. So again, what's the point of getting this fishing rod when you can just buy the steady rod? And next we have the Phoenix rod, and this one I'm going to put it at a B tier. I actually remember I made a test video on this and I made a lot of money using it, and I believe at the Captain Goldfish I made between $60,000 to $70,000 an hour. So yeah, with this fishing rod you could make a lot of money with it. And I see right here we have the training rod and plastic rod, and both are going to be in D tier for me. And next we have the precision rod, and this one I'm going to put it at a B tier. I wanted to put it at a C tier because there's one thing that bothers me about it. In order to get this fishing rod you have to use mythical driftwood. I'm telling you right now, when I got mythical driftwood it cost me $3 million, but the stats on this fishing rod is actually pretty good. So it does have some good uses, but keep in mind that mythical driftwood is kind of hard to get. So if you do plan on trading for mythical driftwood, just keep in mind you might spend a lot of money in general. And next we have rapid rod. At this one I'm going to put it at an A tier. The rapid rod could actually help you catch stuff with the bestiary that require low luck, and on top of that this fishing rod could help you get treasure maps to get that sunken rod even faster. And next we have reinforced rod. On this one I'm going to put it at a B tier. It does have a lot of uses, however it is a way too specific fishing rod, so I think B tier is good enough. And the next fishing rod on the list is going to be the resourceful rod, and this one I'm going to put it at a C tier. Now many people get this fishing rod to help them complete the bestiary even faster. If you look at the passive for it, it doubles the effect of all bait. So if you have weird algae, which gives you a 200% universal luck and -35% lure speed, it'll double it and give it a 400% universal luck and -70% lure speed. So you can pretty much see why people like this fishing rod to complete the bestiary. If you really want to get the bestiary completed really fast, you could use a rod of the depths and use wormhole on it. I feel like that is going to be way more efficient and it's going to make you way more money at the same time. So I think C tier is actually pretty good for it. And next we have the relic rod, and this one I'm going to put at a C tier. To this day, I think the relic rod was a really good fishing rod in general. However, we had one problem with it. The developers have said we're going to get a passive ability with this fishing rod, and it never came. And to be honest, I thought it was going to give us the ability to catch enchant relics at a higher rate, but I guess we got trolled in the end. And the next fishing rod on the list is going to be the Event Horizon rod, and this one I'm going to put it at a C tier. You were only able to get this fishing rod for a limited time, and the main reason I didn't put it at a D tier is because the passive mutation. Every time you catch a fish, it has a 5% chance to be lunar, and at least this fishing rod could help you make a little bit more money, you know. Alright, so we have 15 more fishing rods left, and next we have the Riptide rod, and this one I'm going to put at a D tier. It is really a terrible fishing rod in my opinion. I recommend to skip this one every single time. And next we have the Rod of the Depths, and this one I'm going to put at an A tier. It's pretty obvious A tier. One of the best fishing rods in the game for a very long time, and probably in the foreseeable future. And next we have the Rod of the Eternal King, another one S tier. This one is actually a really good fishing rod. I didn't realize how good it was until way later. And the Rod of the Forgotten Fang, and this one is also an S tier. Wow, 3 S tiers in a row. The Rod of the Forgotten Fang is a really good fishing rod if you get perfect catch every time. you make so much more money. And up next we have the scary rod, and this one I'm going to put it at a B tier. Just like the Phoenix rod, I tested both of them out when making money, and this one made a lot of money as well. So if you like the way the scary rod looks, you want to make money with it, it is not a bad choice. Alright, so up next we have the seasons rod, and this one is going to be a C tier. And again, the only reason I'm going to put it at a C tier is because I like the mutation it comes with it. It has a seasonal mutation and it makes every single fish you catch pretty much pink. And I'm pretty sure it's because it has a visual bug. I'm not really sure about it, but regardless, it being pink is really cool. And finally, we have the steady rod on this one. I'm going to put it at an S tier. Now, even though it is a low level rod, the steady rod really holds it down for a very long time. Like whenever somebody tells me, hey, what should I get next? A mythical rod, the sunken rod, or trident rod? And usually I ask them right after, which fishing rod do you have right now? They'll tell you the steady rod. So the steady rod is really that big of a deal. It's an amazing fishing rod. And next we have the avalanche rod, and this one I'm going to put it at an A tier. It's very similar to the Arctic rod, however it does cost a little bit more money and the stats are a little bit lower, but it does cost $35,000, so it's a really cheap fishing rod to use as well. And next we have the stone rod, and this one I'm going to put it at a D tier. Even for a beginner's rod, it's still pretty terrible to use, so I don't recommend using this. And up next we have the summer rod, and this one I'm going to put it at a B tier. I'm not really a fan of the summer rod, but I don't think it's that terrible. It does have a max weight of 200,000 kilograms, so you never know. Like in the future they could add a fish that weighs over 150,000 kilograms, so it could be pretty useful there. But until then, I think it's a good B tier. Alright, so 5 more left, and now we have the sunken rod. And this one I'm gonna put it at an A tier. Usually many people who have the steady rod start thinking about the next fishing rod they should use. Most people that use a steady rod, they try to look for a way to upgrade it, and it's between the sunken rod and trident rod most of the times. So sunken rod being A tier is actually a pretty good one. And for the next fishing rod on the list, we have the antler rod, and this one I'm gonna put it at a C tier. I wanted to put it at a B tier because the stats were really good. However, it does have a negative resilience, and since most people that use this fishing rod were beginners, they're not gonna have enchant relics. So if you somehow got resilient on it, it could be a decent fishing rod for beginners. And up next we have the trident rod, and this one I'm gonna put it at an A tier. And once again, this fishing rod is a really good fishing rod. I'd argue it is the most bought fishing rod in the game. And next we have the Voyager rod, and this one I'm gonna put it at a C tier. It's not really the most terrible, but it's not the most useful either. In my opinion, if they buff it and give it like the stabbing effect from the trident rod, it could be a really good fishing rod. If they give it the stabbing effect, I would put it at an A tier with the trident rod. And for the last fishing rod of the tier list, we have the wisdom rod, and this one I'm gonna put it at a B tier. It's a really good fishing rod to use when you're trying to get XP only. So yeah, this is pretty much my tier list, but I think now I'm gonna organize it. Now in S tier, I'm gonna put this one up to second place. I'm gonna put Rod of the Forgotten Fang in third place, and yeah, I think this is pretty good right here. And now for A tier, maybe Aurora rod last, trident rod number 1, sunken rod number 2, magnet rod lower. I don't know, I might put mythical higher. I think I'm gonna put mythical in third place because you can make so much money with the mythical mutation. And I'm gonna put rapid rod last. Actually, you know what, maybe Aurora rod higher because you could make a lot of money with it. You know what, I think Arctic is a little bit better. Yeah, it's good for me. And now for B tier, I think Phoenix rod higher, scurvy rod higher, put this one lower, summer rod higher, precision rod higher, fast rod all the way at the end. Wow, this is actually pretty hard. Maybe reinforce higher. I think reinforce could be higher only because it does have infinite weight, I believe. I'm gonna put ice whipper rod at second place actually. Oh man, it's actually pretty tough. I think this one should go up higher, Voyager rod higher, antler rod higher. I think for D tier, I'm gonna put destiny rod higher. Like, I don't know, it's such a nice fishing rod to look at, but I don't see myself using it at all. And the heavens rod luck is not that much worse. I think I'm gonna leave it like this. This is pretty much my tier list like this. So let me know in the comments below what you think about my tier list, if you think it was good or bad or what you would change. But in general, just let me know your opinion about everything. But yeah, if you enjoyed today's video, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.